Welcome to the Mio and MMA podcast. I am your host, Mio. At one point, someone who thought, you know what would be cool? Stepping in the cage. And there was cool about it. There was bad about it. But longtime BJJ practitioner, longtime MMA fan, dating back to the Pride UFC wars. And this is my review of UFC 284, Volkanovski versus Makhachev. Lightweight title on the line. Pound for pound title on the line, although in my opinion it shouldn't have been. Just saying, and we'll get into that more. There are definitely some people who disagree with me a lot, particularly the Islam fan base, about how this makes him the pound for pound champion. I disagree. We'll talk about that more, but we'll talk about all the fights, what happened, where the fighters go from now, go in the future, the immediate future, as in what is their next fights, and just what these fights mean in the grand scheme of things. We start with the main event, Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Number one pound for pound, Volkanovski. Number two pound for pound, Islam Makhachev, though I disagree. And Makhachev's 155-pound title on the line against the featherweight champion, Alexander Volkanovski. I scored this fight for Volkanovski 4-1 live. I have done a rewatch of it. I have changed my mind, and I still have him winning it 3-2. I do not have a problem with Makhachev winning. I want to be clear on that. I think the first and the second round are exceptionally close rounds that you could score either way. I think the third round and the fifth round are Volkanovski's. I think the fourth round is Makhachev's. Those are the sort of undeniable items, which does mean that I disagree with Judge Derek Cleary, who scored the fight 49-46 for Makhachev, giving the third round to Makhachev. So he gave him rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, and gave Volkanovski just the fifth round. I think that's a bad card. I think that's par for the course for Derek Cleary, who is not on my Mount Rushmore of bad judges because it's hard to displace Jeff Mullen, Douglas Crosby, Adelaide Bird, and Cecil Peoples from the absolute top of incompetent MMA judging. So there is that. But he is on the secondary Mount Rushmore with the likes of Sal D'Amato and Marcos Rosales. So he's a bad judge. Anyways, moving on. First round was a lot of getting a feel for it. There wasn't a lot of actual striking achieved. I have the official UFC stats up before me, and apparently it was 11 strikes landed for Makhachev, significantly. 10 strikes for Makhachev, 11 for Volkanovski, and 18-14 in Makhachev's favor. In overall, he also had 2 minutes of top control, mostly where he sat on the back towards the end of the round of Volkanovski, but did not get a lot done. Like I said, it's a 50-50 round in my opinion. I thought Volkanovski got the better of the striking. He had Islam hurt for flash second, basically. Nothing major, but I thought he got the better of the striking by a little bit, and I just thought the ground game didn't really matter. But looking back on it, this is the round I changed my mind on. The striking was, on second viewing, a lot closer, and the takedown probably actually is the thing that seals it. The 2 minutes of back control in a match where the striking is relatively equal, the damage is equal. That's the one that I flip-flopped on. Second round I gave to Volkanovski. He stunned Makhachev twice in the round, made him fight for takedowns, didn't give up a lot of top position. There was, again, according to the official UFC stats, a whopping 57 seconds of top control for Makhachev. There were 53 for Volkanovski. He reversed him a couple of times. Volkanovski got the better of the striking, although apparently, again, 6 strikes and total strikes dead even. So again, if you scored this round for Makhachev, I don't have a problem. I just saw it as a Volkanovski round. It is, in my opinion, the swing round. Because I think having rewatched it, like I said, round 1 does fall into Makhachev's camp. Round 4, Makhachev's camp. He had 3 minutes, 25 seconds of top control. 3 and 5, Volkanovski. So the second round is the determining round. The round that tells you whether you believe that he won or not. All 3 judges gave it to Makhachev. Don't have a problem with that. The third round, though, here is the difference. Derek Cleary scored this round for him. And don't get me wrong, Islam Makhachev landed a nice high kick early on. He landed a body kick as well. He was comfortable boxing and using his, or not boxing, kicking and using his reach to, work things over. Because despite the fact that Volkanovski does have, quote unquote, an inch of reach on Makhachev on paper, you look up their topology, you look at the measurements given. The fact that he is 4 inches taller means that leg reach is going to be in his favor. He is going to have a longer kicking avenue, and he applied that and did that. And here's the thing. Even though I scored this fight against Makhachev, I thought this was a very, very, very good performance from Makhachev. 4th round, Makhachev gets a takedown, controls it, does his thing. Not a lot there. Ironically, again, according to the stats, via UFC stats, he was actually outlanded 49-19. But it's almost all non-significant strikes. They gave Volkanovski 6 significant strikes. They gave 4 significant strikes to Makhachev. The striking became kind of irrelevant. It was a lot of the over-the-shoulder punching that you see when you're being controlled from a fighter. If I was on camera right now, it would be great. This is one of those few times I wish I was on camera. But, the punching over top of your shoulder into the guy's face. And really, they don't do a lot of damage. If you don't believe me, go to a BJJ gym. Go to an MMA school. Go do that. Let a guy get on your back and throw punches behind your own head to try to hurt him. And ask him, does that hurt? And the answer is it's a mild inconvenience. It does not damage. You're barring some kind of insanity. We're talking like, I forget that big Russian's name, but there was a Russian 205er. He did fight in the UFC for a little bit. Fought in Ryzen as well. Knocked a guy out while he was mounted. So if that guy does it, okay, maybe that actually matters. But for most of us mere mortals, the answer is no. But he did get that round because, Makhachev got that round mostly off control. 3rd round or the 5th round, this is where Volkanovski turns it up. There was actually a really good start. He had a really good rush, and then a counter knee from Islam actually was his best moment of the round. Ended up getting slipped to the mat, gets put down, actually gets mounted, ground and pound to the bell, good elbows dropped by Volkanovski. This was the best round of the fight for either fighter. There you go. So I still think Volkanovski won. If you scored it 48-47 for Makhachev, I have no debate. I have no problem. If you scored it 49-46 for Makhachev, we might need to have words. Because it is really hard to picture that 3rd or 5th. Well, no one's giving the 5th round, but the 3rd round, that was Volkanovski's round. I will die on that hill. Okay. What's next for these two fighters? Well, there's obviously the idea of a rematch. The commentary floated that this could be a second fight, again for Makhachev's 155-pound belt. I'd be happy with that. I'd be fine with that. I said this to a friend of mine, was actually pretty anti this fight. Doesn't like that it's holding up 2 divisions. My response is honestly, I feel like these 2 divisions are held up anyways, trying to develop something for different reasons. For featherweight, I think it's the fact that Volkanovski cleaned out the top-notch competitors that we really wanted to see him fight. And there's not really anything there. We're going to talk about that more with the Yair Rodriguez-Josh Emmett fight. Maybe Rodriguez became that guy. But I don't know. He also has a loss to Max Holloway. So, slightly problematic. And with Makhachev, the problem is a lot of squatting. Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje have experienced this triangle of big fights that kind of also involves Conor McGregor. So make it, I guess, a Roomba of sorts. I don't think it's a square, because a square would imply they're all equal. But kind of like a Roomba of sorts that has kind of stagnated the division. And despite the fact that lightweight has a lot of good up-and-comers. You have Jalen Turner. You have Arman Tsarukyan. You had Damir Ismagulov until he departed. You have Goran Kutaladze. You have Matesh Gamrot. You have all of these people making their way up. You have Neil Dariush, who's like the last guy of the old guard that hasn't really gotten the shine he deserves. And, there's a lot of interesting fights there. But because, again, Rafael Fiziev would be another one. Because you do have this kind of like box at the top that kind of like keeps people down, there isn't anyone in position to have a great title shot. It's how Islam Makhachev got a title shot. And a lot of people criticize his resume because it's like, who have you beaten? You beat Dan Hooker, you beat Bobby Green. This is not a title shot worthy thing. The thing is that no one else was really there who Chucky Olives had not beaten before. We're going to talk about that more when I get to Makhachev. So I'm okay with that being a rematch. Volkanovski obviously could fight Yair Rodriguez for the featherweight title. And for Makhachev, the other option, I guess, would be the winner of the aforementioned Rafael Fiziev versus Justin Gaethje fight. Or the option I really don't like, but let's be honest, it's an option that's on the table. Conor McGregor beats Michael Chandler and gets a title shot. Those are the doors. That would be a long time off, though, because as far as I understand it, McGregor is still not in the USADA testing pool and would have to be for 6 months, which would mean the earliest he could fight would be August. And that would be for the Chandler fight. So add the tendency for a 4-month delay. You are talking about, at that point, a title defense for Makhachev versus Conor McGregor coming around in December. I feel like that's way too long to wait. So maybe not actually an option. But maybe 2 fights down the road, an option. Maybe that empowers the rematch. I don't know. So let's talk about the pound for pound stuff, because the pound for pound stuff is dominating social media for MMA right now. Here is the thing. Pound for pound is an inherently abstract thing. If you believe Islam Makhachev is the best fighter in the world, I don't necessarily know I could argue with you, because the only loss we've seen him have is a kind of, I don't want to say fluke, but a little bit flash knockout to Adriano Martins. He did dominate Chucky Olives. He did get the job done here tonight, whether I agree with the decision or not. Here is the problem, though. You're talking about a number 1 pound-for-pound fighter whose entire claim to that title is 2 fights. One of which is a contentious decision against a guy smaller than him. And this is the thing. If Volkanovski was similar in height, let's say 5'9", maybe even 5'8", and had the weight of a lightweight, do you honestly think Makhachev wins this fight? Because he had an incredibly hard time controlling him. And now, some people have argued that because he's short, that's why he had a hard time controlling him. Here's the thing. Yes, there are some inherent anti-takedown defenses that a shorter man or woman, shorter legs, has. Lower center of gravity, harder to get under, harder to shoot on. But there are also inherent advantages of being taller, such as being able to get balance. You hear this with Dominic Cruz talking about it on commentary a lot. He talks about it's like taking down a table sort of thing, where like a leg just keeps popping out, gets the balance up. And Volkanovski has that kind of balance. So if we assume Volkanovski, lightweight size Volkanovski, 15 to 20 pounds heavier than he is now, goes in there with Makhachev, I think he wins. So I don't understand the pound for, like, to be clear here, I don't think that there was really a way for Makhachev to, in my mind, and in a logical sense, become the best pound for pound fighter in the world on resume, not on potential. Because, again, what is the candidacy here? It's a win over Chucky Olives and a win over a smaller featherweight. The idea of the pound for pound rankings is that if you win a fight against someone smaller than you, it doesn't actually help you. It's like when Anderson Silva was going up on 205. Had he lost a fight? Or here we go. Here, perfect example. Israel Adesanya remained ahead of Jan Blachowicz when he went up and challenged Blachowicz at 205 pounds. It's not an identical situation because Blachowicz has a number of losses that probably sours his pound for pound claim that Islam doesn't have. But it did not move him ahead because we all agreed that part of the win for Jan was his size. And part of this win for Islam is his size. Moving on. As for who the pound for pound king should be, I think it's still Volkanovski. He went up a weight class. He gave a great account of himself. He did his thing. Now, I will say this. There are people saying that they feel bad for Islam because they feel he's being disrespected in this whole thing. There are certainly people doing that. Islam's association with Khabib is like this double-edged sword. On the one hand, it is what gets him in these conversations. It is what gets him a fan base that pushes a pro-Makhachev narrative. On the other hand, you do get Khabib's haters. And Khabib's haters are going overdrive to hate on Islam. Before this fight, after this fight, during this fight, all the way through. But I kind of wonder, like, okay, how do you feel bad for a guy who the argument right now, the hater argument, boils down to he may not actually be the best fighter in the world. Like, he is the best fighter in his weight class. He is a top 10, top 5 pound-for-pound fighter on my ranks. I don't really think about pound-for-pound much, but I would put Volkanovski above him. I would still have Izzy, Adesanya, and Kamaru Usman above him. I know that's unpopular because they lost. But my comparison would be when George St. Pierre lost to Matt Serra, we didn't send him tumbling down the pound-for-pound ranks. He stayed like 3rd. So that's kind of ridiculous. Both of them were winning their fights on the cards when they got knocked out. So I would probably have them above him. But that's really about it. So that's 3 guys. Brandon Moreno, I think is actually being disrespected, being put 9th. That's hard. That's kind of ridiculous. He's a guy who's beaten a lot of guys bigger than him. So I'd put Moreno. So I would have Makhachev in the 5th spot. So Volkanovski, Usman, Moreno, Izzy, Makhachev. That's my top 5. Okay. All right, let's move on. I've talked for over 15 minutes about one fight. That's got to be a record. It was a really good fight, and I'll finish this. Okay, final thing. I actually was very impressed with Makhachev. The concern with Makhachev was what happens if he hits adversity, and he did, and he rose above it, and he kept going, and he found solutions, and he adapted, and his striking actually looked much better. Intern featherweight title fight, Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett. First round was mostly Yair Rodriguez, but at a low pace. Great body kicks by Yair. That became a big thing because you could see that after the second body kick, number one, the body of Josh Emmett, very, very red. Not hard to do. He's pale as heck. He bruises up easily. But you could see his elbow was very low. He had adjusted his boxing stance to bring his arm down to protect the rib cage. And that opened up the top side with question mark kicks, with boxing, with even just straight up head kicks. So that opened up things for Yair Rodriguez. I do love the spinning wheel kick he does, which he seems to think is absolutely going to miss, and then he follows up with a right hook right away. He did that in the first round. That was a big moment. That was a big wow moment. Emmett was able to get some things done. He had 3 or 4 very good rushes where he would come forward throwing a bunch of punches, not necessarily efficiently landing, and obviously not a great use of energy, but was able to put Rodriguez on the back foot and get some work done briefly. Rodriguez ended up on the mat with what might have been a headbutt, might have been a punch, I don't know, but he could drop somehow, which is what gave Emmett the first round to me. And then Emmett managed to kind of ride it out with, passing aside control, landing some ground and pound. Rodriguez was able to look for an armbar for a little bit, triangle for a little bit, work some elbows from his back. It wasn't a good round. It's kind of weird because it's a round that for the most part Rodriguez won and established the dynamic going into round 2. But it is a round that because of that knockdown, air quotes, you probably have to give to Emmett. And then in the second round, the end came. Rodriguez kept doing his same thing. He would work the body, and Emmett would double over. He would have to crash the clinch. Yair was actually pretty good at defending the takedown, pretty good at getting work done in the clinch as well. And again, Emmett lowering the hands, head becomes more and more open. Boom, boom, pop, pop, pop. And, hit him with a question mark kick to the head again. And then eventually we ended up on the ground. after a flying knee from Yar Rodriguez was probably a bad idea. The flying knee was a bad idea because it led to Emmett taking him down. But Emmett got basically just elbowed in his head, and then eventually the triangle choke got locked in, and boom, tap out. Yair Rodriguez, who would have thought this not that long ago? The Yair Rodriguez would hold UFC gold. I mean, there was a time when we were really, really hyped on him coming off The Ultimate Fighter, the beating of Charles Rosa, Dan Hooker, Andre Fili. The Alex Caceres fight, I think, soured people on him. BJ Penn recaptured the hype. Then he got bulldozed by Frankie Edgar, had the late second knockout of Chan Sung Jung. The decision with Jeremy Stevens didn't really hype him up all that much. And then ironically, he's gone 1-1. He's gone 2-1 since that fight, beating Brian Ortega via shoulder injury, losing to Max Holloway, and then absolutely turns up and dominates Josh Emmett. It's a roller coaster of a ride. What were the stats? Not that it matters because there was no decision to really talk about here. Yeah, he outlanded Emmett 62-22 in significant strikes, 98-35 overall. Limited Emmett to just one takedown. It's a masterful performance. It's a masterful performance. What's next for Yair Rodriguez? Like I said, it's Volkanovski if you want to do the unification bout, or it's the Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen winner. For Emmett, I have a less great idea of what will happen. A rematch with Calvin Kattar is something Calvin Kattar himself has been kind of angling at, but I think he also wanted the winner of this fight. But I would say Movsar Evloev. I still have a lot of questions about Movsar Evloev. A lot of questions. I have a lot of questions about Josh Emmett now. Why not? Why not? Like, that's still a stylistic fight that Emmett is capable of taking and winning. It means something if Evloev wins. So I really like that fight. I don't know. I don't know about you guys. Leave a comment or whatever to if you want to discuss further. But I really like that fight. Randy Brown got absolutely destroyed by Jack Della Maddalena. I picked Jack Della Maddalena. I felt very good about him coming into this fight, but even I did not really expect this. It was kind of a low simmer until you got a moment up against the fence. Della Maddalena throws a big hook after Randy Brown slips. Brown face plants, gets formed, gets rear naked choked, and it's over. JDM's also got like a lot of gift of gab. Like, dude's got a connection with the audience. I love it. He's a big star in the making, I think. Exciting fighter, not really capable of fighting a boring fight. There you go. And Randy Brown, my man, go back to the gym and figure out a game because there's so much in Randy Brown that should actually be really, really good. There is so much about Randy Brown that should be a top 15 month after month fighter, top 10 even, and he just never comes together. Anyways, next fights. For Jack Della Maddalena, I don't have anything. He said he was going on vacation to Bali. Let him do his thing. When he comes back, give him somewhere in the 6-12 rank of whatever is there in UFC welterweight. For Randy Brown, I think Muslim Salikov would be a fun opponent. Dropping down, we got a fight that unfortunately kind of told me nothing. It was short. It was sweet. It was a knockout for Justin Tafa. It was cool. He looked strong in the clinch, and then he knocked him out. The problem is that my question with Justin Tafa is not physical. It is like, what do you do in a long, prolonged fight where what you try doesn't work like that? Where the first idea you have doesn't lead to something exactly like this. I've got Chris Barnett as his next opponent. I love that fight. The two guys who weighed in at super heavyweight for recent UFC fights, let him fight. And for Parker Porter, he seems like actually a really, really good test for Austin Lane, who was supposed to be on this card. Has signed with the UFC, is ready to go. Very raw fighter, high athletic ceiling, but I do really question what he can do when he's forced to... similarly to Tafa, when he's forced to just not win the fight immediately. And Parker Porter normally is a hard out. He was not here, but normally is a hard out. This was a loss for me. It was my last loss on the night, actually. Jimmy Crute versus Alonzo Menefield. I gave Menefield the first 2 rounds. He destroyed Crute in the first 2 rounds. He had him like perma-rocked. Like it was painful to watch. And somehow, again, Judge Derek Cleary to the rescue, because when they read the scores for this, they gave a 29-27. And I didn't get it because that meant that Crute won the fight. The reason I didn't understand it, and the reason it had to be because Menefield got deducted a point in the 3rd round for grabbing the cage, was that meant that Crute had to win 2 rounds. And there was just no way. Again, going to the UFC stats here for a hot second here, Crute got outlanded significant strikes, 58-30, 56-31, and 99-62 overall. If we look at the per rounds, he got outlanded 23-10, 25-10. No, you can't get doubled up by Alonzo Menefield. And not for nothing. By the way, the second round in which Menefield apparently lost the round, according to Derek Cleary, he even had more top control. He even had more top control than Jimmy Crute did. Jimmy Crute was on the way to getting 10-8'd in that round until he got a late takedown, got back control, worked for a rear naked choke. Menefield had no gas left. Crute had no brain left because he was freaking rocked for the entire round. I don't understand how you give that round to him. Anyway, so I had Menefield up 2-0 heading into 3rd. Great power striking performance. Crute with a lot of heart, ton of recovering ability. Been dropped, been hurt, but Menefield's out of gas. And this is where the cage grab comes in. Point gets taken. There was no warning prior to this, and a lot of people had a problem with that. Here's the thing. He grabbed the cage in a way that actively defended a takedown. And the referee cannot give Jimmy Crute a takedown. He cannot do that. He cannot give him position. So you have avoided a bad position, getting taken down, possibly finished. You are clearly very tired. And you don't want to put... You want just a warning to be there for that. No, I think, personally, I've said this a number of times, MMA referees should take points away more frequently. Now, is there kind of this weird conundrum where we've seen that exact thing result in a warning and not a point deduction? Sure. But at some point, this just should be an automatic point deduction. At some point, preventing a deep takedown with a cage grab has to be a point deduction. So I was fine with it. And that gave a 10-8 round because eventually Crute did get the takedown with about 2:45 left. Looked for his trademark Kimura. He loves that Kimura. Couldn't get it. Got the back. Got some ground and pound. Looked for rear naked choke. Couldn't get it done. And yeah, I had a 28-28. I think, honestly, that's the only scorecard that makes any sense. Because the first round is Menefield's because Crute basically mugged him. Forced him into clinching along the cage and then got hurt. And yeah, sure, Crute got 4 takedowns in that round. That's impressive and all. But he did nothing with them. Menefield was able to get back up. Menefield was able to get all the damage in. So that was Menefield's round. And then the second round, like I said, was almost a 10-8, but Crute did end up in a very good position at the end. Yeah, I don't know how you can get doubled up in both rounds. Also get controlled in your own right, because Menefield had top position. And win those rounds. So I think a draw is the only fair decision. For next opponents, I have Jimmy Crute against Ion Cutelaba. I said last card recap that I wanted to see Ion Cutelaba versus Devin Clark. I realized that it had already happened. And I went back and watched it, and I enjoyed it, and I'm ready to move on. Yeah, give me Crute and Cutelaba. They're the two guys that are kind of like these big, just power hammers that are not necessarily powerful enough or hammer-like enough to actually get the job done. So it would be fun to see them fight each other. It really would, I think. And they're at similar places right now because with Cutelaba, you got a 3-fight losing streak. With Crute, you have a 2-fight losing streak and a draw. let's put it this way, a 3-fight winless streak. And he probably should have lost this one had it not been for the cage grab. Unless he gets to finish in the third round, which is possible. Menefield versus Devin Clark, ironically, is where I'm going to go with this because Menefield had problems with a just persistent coming at you person. And I essentially just want to redo this fight without doing a rematch. Because it does seem just really weird that this fight got made because Menefield coming in, admittedly on a low-end 2-fight winning streak against Askar Mazarov and Misha Serkinov, who I love, but is in a bad place now. And it kind of made this fight make not a lot of sense. So a rematch wouldn't make a particularly large amount of sense either. So do the Devin Clark thing. It's kind of the same matchup. There are differences between Jimmy Crute and Devin Clark, but they have very similar options. And let's see what happens. Tyson Pedro versus Modestas Bukauskas. I scored all 3 rounds for Bukauskas. They were close. Pedro got... I'm curious now. What rounds did Pedro get? So Judge Evan Field scored at 30-27 for Bukauskas. He had my scorecard. Barry Foley and Mick Meaney gave Pedro the first. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with that. I'm not going to describe this fight in great detail because it was very repetitive. Tyson Pedro showed the physical abilities that should make him way better than he is, similar to Randy Brown. But he doesn't have a concept of defense. He doesn't have a concept of how to fight a fighter that isn't immediately crumbling against him. And I had a Lauren Murphy moment, a corner moment, when I was yelling body language at Pedro because after the first round, he looked tired. He was holding himself very low. And this, number one, on a practical level, this meant anything Bukauskas hit him that much harder. And number two, it made it look like he was losing the fight even worse than he was. Nice win for Bukauskas coming back. I liked his work on the microphone afterwards, connecting with the crowd after beating their hometown boy. And I've got to fight against Nick Negamarianu for him because I still need to see what happens if he fights a guy who just actually has a good pocket and clinch game and durability and grit and determination, and Negamarianu is all of those things. I don't even know what you do with Tyson Pedro anymore. I've never had a great idea of what to do with Tyson Pedro. His career is just unsettling. He's 31 years old, so he's certainly not terribly old. He doesn't have a lot of problems. Doesn't have a lot of wear and tear. That's what I'm looking for here. And he got to the UFC really early. He was 4-0, beat Khalil Roundtree, who more or less just collapsed. Paul Craig, who more or less just collapsed. Lost to Ilar Latifi, beat Saprabek Safarov, who's really bottom of the barrel. Lost to OSP, lost to 2018 Shogun Hua. And then, a couple of first-round finishes over Villeneuve and Hunsucker. I don't trust him to go beyond a round. And, yeah, I don't know what to do with him. I don't want to say we're done with him because he'll show moment to moment in the fight that there are little things that still make me believe he's a prospect. But he ain't putting it together and probably needs to break training with his dad, who seems just like a psycho. Josh Kulabau versus Melsik Bagdasaryan. Bagdasaryan started off really nice, got the nice body kicks there. He does not box enough. He does not box enough at all, and it leaves a lot of room for, in this fight, Kulabau to work low kicks, Kulabau to dig to the body. There was a spinning dick kick, a mule kick to Kulabau's nuts that the referee described as not having a lot on it, and I think that referee needs to be kicked in the balls. I gave the first round to Bogdasarian. Round 2 saw them clash heads, and then Kulbau dropped Bogdasarian. More of a slip, but dropped him down, got the back, rear naked choke, boom. And hey, Josh Kulbau continues to do good things. I like him. He's got an excellent personality that I really, really enjoy. Yes, there is a ceiling on him in terms of like physicality and how far he can really go. He's not going to be a ranked guy. He's not going to challenge for a title or anything. But he's going to be fun every time he fights. And I got him against Joe Anderson Brito. That'd be a fun fight. And for Bogdasarian, I have him against Luis Saldana in a battle of two incredibly limited fighters with questionable fight IQ that would make a weird and just fun fight. Watch as one of them turns into a wrestler. I don't know. Anyways, that's the fight I like to see. Clayton Rodriguez made short work of Shannon Ross. Shannon Ross is not UFC material. I don't care what you do with him. Rodriguez versus Carlos Hernandez would be my pick. There was a cool spinning ass attack in the finish. It was like literally just Rodriguez hurts him and just flurries. And apparently we didn't have a Portuguese translator on hand, which is weird because you really should. You should have a translator on hand at all times to communicate with the fighters. Like that's kind of insane. It's very confusing. Jamie Malarkey fought a safe fight to win 30-27 against Francisco Prado. I don't have much to say. Again, in my preview, I said a lot of nice things about Prado. That I think he has a lot of physical upside. I think there's a lot of creativity to him. I think there's adventurousness. I think there's the right kind of wild man to make MMA work. The problem is he has no takedown defense. He has an active guard, but he has no takedown defense. No process, no nuance, no polish. My hope for him is that some ATT, aka MMA Masters, Fortis MMA, hell, if it still ends up existing after the whole James Krause thing, Glory Kickboxing, anything really, like even like something like Ricardo Almeida BJJ or something, like a reasonably decent sized camp looks at this fight, looks at Francisco Prado and goes, you know what, we want to bring you to the United States, we want to train you, we want to use you as an opponent for our guys in the gym because you bring a lot of interesting physicality that would help us prepare for a number of different opponents, and we do that. And the UFC would like retain him as a prospect contract or something. They won't do that because they don't do that. For Malarkey, he wants Paddy Pimblett. Made a crack about how Paddy Pimblett believes that a Scouser doesn't get knocked out. That's always funny. More people should do that. If you're a lightweight right now, you're not calling out Paddy Pimblett. I don't know what you're doing. I'm not saying you'll get it, but realistically, you're a lightweight, you have a fight coming up in the UFC, you win, you get mic time, you call it Paddy Pimblett. That's how that works. Because that is the biggest reward, lowest risk fight you could possibly call out for. I think the rebooking with Nasrat Haqparast is more likely. I think that's a fun fight. I'm actually interested to see it. And for two guys who have completely different problems, by the way. Malarkey is like physically capped, and Haqparast is just like fight IQ capped. It's the two sides of the coin of hard ceiling in MMA. And for Prado, like I said, I would really, really love it. I would so love it if the UFC put someone on a small retainer as a developmental fighter and let him fight out there. So they did it with Greg Hardy's. I wouldn't say they never do it, but Greg Hardy is a weird case. But probably they'll put him up against like Chris Gritzbacher or something, a guy who doesn't have a lot of physicality, and see what he can do on a full camp, I guess, in a similar matchup but on a lower scale, a less dangerous scale, a smaller scale, physically speaking, than Jamie Malarkey. Jack Jenkins versus Don Shainis. I was wrong on this fight. This was my bad pick of the card. I thought Don Shainis, who I'd been more impressed by his level of physical competition than Jack Jenkins, would come out here and be unbullyable for Jack Jenkins. And to a degree, I was right. He was not fully bullied, but it didn't stop Jenkins from pounding the low kicks in, from engaging in the clinch, from digging to the body with like nice body combination. He loves the low kick body combo. I'm here for it. I love it. He stuffed takedowns. He buckled Shainis' leg in the first round. And somehow this went 15 minutes. With even a 10-8 possible third round. I really like what Jack Jenkins has to do. He did get cup checked twice by Shainis. That was a little bit problematic. Anyways, no, like it's one of those fights that like you should go watch. This was, in my opinion, at least up until the main event, this was the fight of the night. And I would have still given it the fight of the night, actually. Still would have, because it never stopped. It never slowed down, never became routine. Whereas the main event did. The main event did. Like, the fourth round is a great example of this. Like, the fourth round of the main event was a shit round. This didn't have that. This had back and forth scrambles on the grounds, both guys trying to find position, both guys trying to get takedowns, and both guys landing leg kicks. Like, that's the thing, is like Shainis actually didn't shy away from like kicking Jenkins in the leg back. He's insane. He is insane. He has the right level of insanity to be a really good fighter. I think, unfortunately, his problem is that he was a guy who decided to go down to James Krause's gym, Glory MMA and Fitness. And, of course, that's turned out to be a really bad idea. Now he's up at Citadel MMA. I've never heard of them. That's not great. And another guy I would probably bring in and do like as a opponent in my gym and let him train that way. And cool. So he's had 2 losses in a row. I think he'll stick around because this fight was really, really good. I would keep him. And I got him penciled in against Eric Silva, the Venezuelan guy. Super physical opponent, but like a dude who has all kinds of question marks in regards to what happens if you just can't bully someone. Kind of like Jack Jenkins, actually. And we'll see what happens. And for Jenkins, I got Gavin Tucker, if he's still around. Because I haven't heard any kind of like booking for him in a long, long time. This was a very, very good fight. The amusing bit at the end where Shainis eats a front kick to the face and is clearly very rocked and continues to like try and fight was pretty good. Go watch this. This was the highlight of the undercard. Another pretty good fight was Loma Lukebumi versus Elise Reed, strawweight action. I thought Reed actually won the first round. She did get her leg chewed up a lot. Loma was driving kicks into there. Huge bruise on her thigh. Oh boy. Loma went for a takedown. I didn't think that was a great idea with 2 minutes to go. I know she's been working on her ground game. I know Elise Reed, despite the fact that a lot of people were talking about Elise Reed as a wrestler. She's a Taekwondo guys. Like, there were a lot of people talking about how Elise Reed is going to out wrestle Loma Lukebumi and do some things. No, that's not her game. Now, the reason this takedown was a bad idea, Reed did manage to reverse her, hit some ground and pound, and eventually got her back and looked for a rear naked choke. She couldn't get it, but I thought that the ground exchange won the round for her. Loma had not beaten her up too badly on the feet. Like, she had just chopped the leg mostly. And she was able to get it back here. And then in the second round, Loma's like, all right, we're going right back to the ground. I'm going to take your back and I'm going to tap you out with a rear naked choke. We could talk about that being like not particularly amazing fight IQ. But to go right back to the thing that did not work at the end of the first round, But Loma is clearly working on her skills, becoming better. She's still hard cap. Please, please, please. Dana, UFC. I'm doing the prayer motion with my hands here. Atomweight division. Do it. It would be fun. It would be fun. And there are a ton of girls on the outside of the UFC right now. Julian DeCourcy, Jessica Delboni, Alicia Zapatella, a number of options in Ryzen that are just chomping at the bit to get in here. And there are a lot of smaller girls. And in the UFC, in addition to both of these girls, you have Tabitha Ricci. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. You have Tisha Torres that could probably make atomweight and make it a really fun division. And it gives you another belt. Why are you allergic to belts? There are promotional props that can prop up a card or at least a fight night or something. Do it. Loma looked really good here. I've got her against the winner of the aforementioned Tabitha Baby Shark Ricci versus Jessica Penne. If it's Ricci, hey, we have like a preview of what an atomweight title fight could look like. If it's Penne, she's a taller, clinch-capable fighter that I still... If she's going to be a strawweight, I still need to know if Loma can handle. And for Elise Reed, I have Maria Oliveira. No real particular reason. They're just kind of in a similar boat. And I think it would be fun. I do think both of them have significant things wrong with their game, though. Speaking of significant things wrong with their game, and I did not mean this as a segue. Blake Builder versus Shane Young, who are two absolute displays of that exact thing. Shane Young I've never really gotten. He just kind of drifts out of fights a lot. He did win the second round on David Letherby's card. I also gave him the second round here. Let's pull up the fight stats here to break this one down a little bit more on an analytical level. Builder outlanded him in significant strikes every round, including in the second round. I don't remember it being that way. They got it 37-27 in Builder's favor. Maybe I need to go back and rewatch this one. I don't really want to, though. The problem with Builder is that he has good ideas. He's constantly moving his head, constantly moving his feet, circling away, playing the range game. He's a tall dude for the weight class, at least reach-wise, and that works for him. Like the building blocks of a really solid outfighting game with an opportunistic submission game and back take game are absolutely there. But there were a couple of moments in the fight where there just was nothing happening. And it was Builder waiting and evading, looking for Young to make a mistake, but having no actual way to make him make that mistake. And it was only when Builder started working takedowns in the first round that things really started to get going. Like there was never a moment where Builder would move, would feint, would flinch, that you didn't feel the lethality of his movement. That if he were to uncork a strike right now and hit his opponent, it would hurt really badly. But he just never really did it. And I want to chalk part of that up to octagon jitters, but at the same time, I've seen him do this, and the reason that he gets finishes is, in fact, the other fighters committing just unforced errors. And you're not going to get that in the UFC's featherweight division. This is a good division. This is a strong division. Young was able to get some things going at the end of the second round, about 90 seconds there where he cut the cage off, landed a couple of decent shots. That's what gave him the round to me. Maybe I need to go back and do like a count strike on that, because apparently apparently he was very well outlanded. And then in the third round, Builder finally got some damage, made Young feel the power, busted him up a little bit, drew a little bit of blood. And I will say, of course, there is the famous clip of Dana White's saying he didn't sign Brandon Logan off of Dana White's Contender Series because he went for a takedown at the end of the fight. And that was ridiculous. But there was 6 seconds left of the clock, and Shane Young went for a takedown in a fight he was clearly losing. That was stupid. That was to quote Dana White, not something you do. The post-fight comment, the post-fight was a little bit disturbing for Bilder because he rated this performance at 8 out of 10. He was very happy with it. He thought he fought well. He did have the kind of gaffe of saying, I wasn't nervous at all, but I was super nervous. When asked about it, like octagon jitters, I'm chalking that up to the octagon jitters, just really. Like, you're in front of 15,000 people. You got a mic thrust in your face. You're going to say something dumb. I'm fine with that. But if there's no long-term reflection from Bilder that, like, I do need to work some things into my game, some effective feints to draw out some stuff to open up counter opportunities. I need to maybe have at least like a little bit of an active lead hand to fill the space while I'm trying to find an opening. It's going to be a problem. I've got him against Lucas Almeida, which is a fighter that will freaking bring the fight to him, and we'll see what happens. And for Shane Young, he honestly might just get cut. But I got Danny Chavez as another guy who might also have just been cut as an option. He's a 13-7 fighter, Shane Young. He's now lost 3 in a row to Bilder, Omar Morales, and Ludwig Klein. Not the highest stuff. Yes, he beat Austin Arnett and Rolando D and lost to Alexander Volkanovski, but he is a 2-4 fighter in the UFC. He's beaten 2 guys who I know D is not on contract anymore, and I'm pretty sure Arnett is not on contract anymore. Let me pull up his Tapology page here. Austin Arnett. Yeah, Arnett is not. Yeah, Arnett's the one that's off in UAE Warriors. Right. Yeah, so not guys that mean anything. So, I don't know. Young might be gone. Elvis Brenner got a split decision victory over Zubaira Tukhugov. I think the decision is bullshit. Brenner. Okay, so a justification for this was that Brenner landed more punches in the first and the third round. And according to UFC stats, he did 24-17 and 22-17. But all of his strikes were short, not really landing. Dude was hitting arms a lot. Straight up, I thought Tukhugov won all 3 rounds. Honestly, if you want to give the third round to him or to Brenner, I'm fine with it because Tukhugov spent it kind of just like going for really ineffectual low percentage takedowns that were not happening. But Brenner did not win this fight, and I still in no way believe that he's UFC caliber. I don't. A better takedown defense than I thought he would. That's about it. His stand-up is all short. It's pad punching. It's I throw and I'm expecting to hit the pad, not your face. So I end up like several inches short of your face. I'm not going to get terribly worked up over it because this is Zubair Tukhugov we're talking about here. Who is a fighter I have long had a little bit of a burning hatred for because he fights like this. Low output, not really doing much of anything, poor decisions. All of those things. And one judge, Evan Field, gave all 3 rounds to Brenner. Fire that judge. The MMA media scores were all Tukhugov, either 29-28 or 30-27. across the board. This was your bad decision of the night. That actually affected the winner and affected the winner's purses. Which, by the way, actually is the thing. Like, a lot of people were like really happy about the Menefield draw. Both of those guys just lost their winner's purse for the card. And did they get bonuses? They did not. So fight of the night went to Makhachev versus Volkanovski. I have no problem with that, but I would have preferred Jenkins Shanus. They could do a lot more with that $50,000. Rodriguez got a performance of the night bonus, and Jack Del Mandalena got a performance of the night bonus. I have no objections to either of those. That's about it for the card, really. Because I don't care who Brenner or Tukugov fight. I've for a long time not cared who Tukugov fights. He's a guy who has all the physical abilities in the world. It's great, but just fails. Just fails in a big way. What are we coming up here? We've got one, and we've got a UFC fight night here. So UFC fight night, Andrade versus Blanchfield. Oh yeah, this got changed up. This one got announced. Tyler Santos pulled out. Jessica Andrade is in there. I wasn't picking Blanchfield against Santos. I'm not picking her against Andrade. I guess that's kind of what it boils down to. The rest of the card is hot garbage. Oh, God. Zach Pauga versus Jordan Wright as your co-main event. Oh, why? Oh, why? Oh, that is bad. Josh Parisian, Jamal Pogues. William Knight versus Marcin Prado. Alexander Hernandez, Jim Miller. That's a fun fight. That's the one to get excited for. Lena Landsberg versus Mayra Buena Silva. Jamal Emmers is back against Kushin Ashkabov. Philip Lins versus Ovens St. Pro. Nazim Sadihov versus Evan Elder. Themba Gambino versus AJ Fletcher. And Juan Camilo Ronderos versus, which is a fun name. I love that name. Versus Clayton Carpenter. This is a terrible fight card. Oh, God. Oh, Lord. This is garbage. I see a lot of canceled fights on here. Marlon Vera versus Corey Sandhagen being the big one, but I don't even know if any of them would have saved it. Because like the good ones on here, the good canceled fights, so to speak, are like Aaron Blanchfield versus Tyler Santos, which has largely just been replaced by a same fight, and Jim Miller, Gabriel Benitez, which I think actually has been upgraded. And then on the one side of things, we got John Lineker versus Fabricio de Andrade, number 2. And we got Martin Wynn versus Shamil Gasanov. We got Iko Rani Sapatra versus Denny Kingad. I don't know Sapatra. Do I? Do I know him? I don't know. I'll be looking it up. And of course, the usual selection of grappling and kickboxing. You've got Danielle Kelly on the card. That's cool. I like Danielle Kelly. I like watching her grapple. She's creative. I enjoy it. She has a win over Carla Esparza in grappling. That's pretty cool. Anyways, that is all. If you look above, to the left, to the right, or below, you will find a description of this video. And in that description, you will find a couple of links. One is to my Linktree, one is to my Discord, a couple others there too. If you check out the Linktree, you'll find everything you need. There's my Discord there, which is home of our Sim Fighting League, as well as the Pro Wrestling Simulator. It's fun. It's fun. Check it out. Come in, check it out, read the stuff, and we're gonna have a good time. My gaming channel is there as well. All the places you can find this podcast and my Twitter. So, boom, there you go. Have a nice day. Maybe take next weekend off. As far as MMA is concerned.